you so much for the opportunity to get to be here with you folks today. I can't tell you how incredibly excited I am about the fact that we now have a way into the insurance commissioners at their absolutely highest levels. So I had a great opportunity as a new consumer liaison to be able to interact directly with the commissioners, and I'm just going to call them commissioners. I know some states call them superintendents and directors, and they've got a whole group of different names, but insurance commissioners is about where I'm going to set it. The same way with the departments of insurance, I'm just going to call them that, even though I know some of them are Department of Financial Services or regulatory something or other, you know, that the insurance regulators are actually under. So if I say Department of Insurance, I'm talking about the people who are regulating insurers and are looking out for consumers. I'm going to go through and give you an idea of what was discussed, some of the presentation slides that I gave for the presentation to the insurance commissioners. So let's rock and roll. All right. The National Association of Insurance Commissioners, the NAIC, they meet officially 3 times a year, right? Spring, kind of summer, and then fall, November, December, in different locations like the SCRS and CIC. It moves around from different states and different locations. All commissioners are, not that they're required to be there for 5 days, but the actual conference lasts 5 days. It is very long, and let me tell you, it is early morning. Some of the meetings start at 8 o'clock in the morning, breakfast starts at 7, 8 o'clock, and they go all the way through 6 o'clock in some of them, and then there are typically after events as well. So it is a very long, very information-filled day, pretty much every day. The official commissioners are there. The NAIC also includes their regulatory staff. So with the insurance folks who work for the government, you've got about 1,000 people there. You have about 30 consumer liaisons. And as you can see here, there are insurance industry representatives. Sorry about that, John. There are insurance industry representatives who are there. There are lobbyists. There are insurance company employees. There are insurance company lawyers. The place is just filled with the insurance industry. So as you can see, there are about 1,000 of them. I'm not kidding. I think there were almost 2,000 people who were at this event. So we're looking at significant disproportion between the effect that the consumer liaisons can have and the interactions that everybody from the insurance industry can have. We did, however, manage to secure private meetings with a number of commissioners. And so we had private meetings, as you can see, with Pennsylvania, New York, Colorado, Oklahoma, and Georgia. And they were really, really interesting. We told the commissioners, what is it that we asked them, what are you looking at, what are your top issues, and how can we help? And then, of course, they wanted to know from the consumer perspective, what are your top issues? And they didn't quite say, how can we help? But they certainly were open to information from us. In the next meeting in New York City, we already have planned to meet with the Ohio Commissioner and North Carolina. So, and there should be other ones as well. It's just, as I said, these days are packed, and just getting any time at all from the commissioners is tough. These are commissioners and regulators, like some of their top deputies that I personally had the opportunity to interact with, and as I said, got some interesting responses. I will say one thing that I found fascinating when I met with some of the folks from Vermont. I don't know if Mike Parker's here. Okay, no, but she knew who Mike Parker was. She was an attorney with the department. She knew who Mike Parker was. She did not know he was an engineer. So one of the things I want to make clear to anybody who is interacting with the departments is that if you have special skills like that, make sure it's known, because her attitude changed immediately when I mentioned that he was an engineer. And it went from, oh yeah, he's a shop who we hear from a lot, and she didn't say complain, but you know, he's definitely someone we know. But as soon as I said he was an engineer, it was a different perspective. It became, well, maybe I should take some of what he's saying more seriously. I mean, and that's a sad comment, because you don't have to be an engineer to be a great collision repairer or repair facility. But certainly if you do have those kinds of unique skills, make certain that anybody you're dealing with at the department knows. And we'll get back to some of the individual ones in a minute. Here's how the NAIC is set up. They have the committees first, then they have underneath the committees working groups, and then under the working groups, they may have task forces, okay? Yes, the infamous task force. But I will say, with some of the complicated things that they're working on, some of those task forces are very necessary. I've listed the property casualty because, of course, that's what we care about. Lots and lots and lots of focus on healthcare. Okay? 80% of the consumer liaisons to the National Association of Insurance Commissioners are focused on health. There are very few property casualty folks. And I can tell you, I am the only consumer liaison who has any focus on auto insurance, consumer issues with auto insurance, and certainly collision repair. And the great part was, they were actually thrilled to have me.
Yeah.
They were. Lois Alexander, who is the liaison for the liaisons, she is an NAIC employee, and she runs us, told me when I first was introduced to her, we're so thrilled to have someone who does auto, because we haven't had any of that for years, and the property casualty folks who are there are focusing on homeowners insurance, flood issues, things like that. So they were very happy to see me come, and you know, that was the nicest reception that I've ever received from what I potentially saw as a hostile audience. So the working group, the Property and Casualty Committee, obviously meets at every single one of the 3 yearly events. Within that, they then get reports from the various working groups, and of course the working groups, the task forces, if there are task forces, have reported to the working group then reports up to the committee itself. But the working groups, it might sound like, oh gee, what does that mean? They actually they're very active. They have monthly telephone conferences. Some of them have semi-monthly, so every 2 weeks they're talking about these issues. And that's particularly certain niche healthcare related issues. But again, these groups, there is a significant commitment of time that you have to make to be a consumer liaison for the NAIC. And the task forces, again, just, you know, they report, they provide a written product, or they say, we need more time, we don't have everything prepared. So property casualty, these are just some of the working groups. Private flood insurance, they're very focused on that. They've got a FEMA task force. Title insurance, I included big data. Big data is really kind of, it crosses a variety because of the committees, because everybody's concerned with how much information insurers have about us and what they're doing with it, and how they could be using it to the detriment of consumers. So that is a big issue. And there are a few more. There is nothing going on right now at the NAIC about auto insurance or involving auto insurance in any way. Nothing. But we intend to change that. Mm-hmm. So to initiate any NAIC action, you have to first get a charge. And I'm still learning some of the lingo. I'm not real familiar with this. So apparently the charge is like a thou shalt do order from the NAIC board. And you get a charge, which then goes to the committee, which then creates the working group for that particular charge. So the first step to initiating a charge is to give an NAIC presentation saying, here's a significant issue you should be looking at, and we need to engage in this and take more action. So then with every presentation, the commissioners get a form that allows them to fill it out and say, yes, this is an issue I think we should look at, let's move forward. So this is the presentation that I gave to the insurance commissioners. I'm just going to give you a couple of the slides. And so, of course, I told them about the Gianni Bookcase, which horrified them. And again, one of the most significant issues I had to pound home to them was the verdict of $42 million overall. That was for compensatory damages alone. That had nothing to do with punishing the collision repair shop. That was about the fact that neither one of these people will ever work again. They were significantly harmed. They were burned almost to death. And their lives, they had lots of medical bills, et cetera. Because when insurance people hear things like $42 million, it's like, ooh, insurance rates will go up, ooh, bad, bad. And it was interesting because when I first pitched my presentation to be able to give the presentation, I had to make a pitch to the NAIC Consumer Liaison Committee. The first comment I got from the chair was, won't insurance rates go up? And my comment back was, well, they don't have to. I said, but let me pose this to you. Would you rather have, even if they did, would you rather have insurance rates go up, or would you rather have unsafe cars go back out on the road so we can keep insurance rates down so that people can get killed? And of course, that was like, oh, okay. And the vice chair said, I think this sounds like a great presentation. So anyway, he was very, very interested. So I gave them, of course, the rundown of what happened to the Seabashans. And then I also went on to say what we're talking about. The presentation was focused right now. Got to give these things to them in sound bites of we have to have insurers paying for the original equipment manufacturers, certainly their procedures that affect safety. We have to get past this shtick that the insurers go through about how, oh, we don't pay for that, or it's a case-by-case basis, or you're the only one who's charging for it. We don't care. We have to make this the issue. And so with that, I told them the major collision repair organizations have all said the automakers' procedures, I say dictates, even though they're often described as recommended, that they have to be followed. This is what the industry says, that this collision industry says the OEM procedures are the industry standard. And I'm sure you're all familiar with. We know that many insurer estimates print out and say, oh, we pay according to generally accepted industry standards. So I was definitely trying to drive home the point to the insurance commissioners that the only industry standard that exists are the OEM standards.
You're here.
Amen.
Yep. And I also gave them information about the fact that the auto manufacturers are on board with this, that they say, this is the standard for how to fix my car, and that they also have provided information. So I got a lot of interest. Let me tell you, the California Insurance Commissioner, Commissioner Lara, came up to me immediately after my presentation and said, that was a great presentation, and I want to work with you on solving some of these issues certainly for consumers, but we have to do something for our small businesses in California. I know that they have lots of issues with the insurers, and I will be in touch with you. All right, so, and it was wonderful. It was just such a good feeling. So these are the states where I see immediate opportunities to be able to make some change. Okay? So again, this is not to say that other states wouldn't be interested, but I didn't necessarily have any personal interactions with some of the other states, and so, but I can't say, oh yes, they're interested, they're not interested, but I can tell you, these states were very receptive, All right, California, obviously, I just told you, the insurance commissioner is very, very focused on protecting consumers and helping collision repairers make certain that they are repairing vehicles properly, and he also gets the fact that you all are being underpaid. I mean, it was interesting because as he said to me, you know, LA has, of course, LA County has the highest insurance rates in California. I said, yes, and isn't it interesting that LA also has some of the lowest collision repair rates in the country? I said, so how do you mix those two things?
Yeah.
Where is all the money going, right? So it sure isn't going into your pockets. And that's why I said to the chair of the Consumer Liaison Committee when I was pitching, you know, about the won't insurance rates go up, part of what I said too was, you know, they're making profits.
Yeah.
Right now what they're doing is they're demanding that the collision repair industry subsidize their profits.
That's right.
And that's wrong, because they expect you to perform the proper safe collision repairs, but they don't want to have to pay for the proper safe collision repairs.
And they don't have any of the liability of however you choose to do it.
Exactly. In case anyone didn't hear, they don't have any of the liability of how you choose to do it. And I made this point. Plus, the other thing that was great about the Sibushan case, to be able to say with the John Eagle issue, let's talk about all the other insurers who were negatively impacted. Is that the health insurers? Mr. Sibushan, I know, was in the hospital, I believe, for almost 2 years. How is that beneficial for anybody? Let's talk about the garage carriers.
Yeah.
You know, we know they ended up with like $35.5 million in a verdict against them. And again, that's one of the things I find when I'm able to present to the insurance folks, is to say, this is how they impact all of their fellow insurers in a negative way that drives up insurance rates. So, California, Georgia, North Carolina, Colorado, Mississippi, New York, Oklahoma possibly. The Oklahoma commissioner was very interesting. He is, in fact, most of these, I can't say about Colorado, but or Mississippi, no, or New York. I'm wrong about that. I was going to say most of them are elected, but that's not accurate. But the Oklahoma commissioner largely ran his campaign, and he is an elected commissioner. Commissioner Mulready ran his campaign on choice, right? Being able to have choice. Now, he was focused on health care at the time he said that, but we had a great conversation because at the time, the healthcare folks were all upstairs presenting and weren't able to really make it to our one-on-one meeting. So the property casualty people, like the 5 or 6 of us who were there, essentially had him for an hour to ourselves. It was great. So anyway, we had some discussion and said, again, what we can do to help you, we are here to do. Jim Beck, the commissioner from Georgia, he called me yesterday morning and said, hey, Erica, we need to do something about this. And his specific comments to me were, okay, I can't do anything to change in effect, currently existing policy language. Okay, that was approved by a prior administration. It's in, I can't make the insurers change that. But, in essence, is there a way that we can interpret the policy language that is more beneficial to consumers? All right, the existing policy language. So he and I are going to be working on and looking at some of those issues. He also said, what specific language should we be looking to include in new policies or policies that they want to change or make changes to? We can impact those. So can you please send me some language that you think should be in insurance company auto policies? I added this one parenthetically because this was part of our discussion, but it wasn't something he asked me, which is, what practices can we mandate that insurers engage in, and how do we do that under the existing laws and regulations? What can we use to help consumers? And what specific ideas do we have as an industry that will help consumers and repairers and insurers in this entire relationship? And it was a great conversation. He and I are going to be speaking again next Wednesday about specific ideas. So if anybody has any specific idea or policy language, something that you think should be included, I am happy to, consider it and pass it on if it's appropriate. The other thing he said to me was, Erica, the collision repairers, they're great people. He said, all they do is complain. They never offer me a solution. They say, this is wrong and it needs to be fixed. He's like, that's fine. But tell me how I can fix it within my legal and regulatory framework. And to understand this, a lot of these insurance departments are significantly understaffed and underfunded as a result. As he said, I only have like 200 staff members. In essence, I'm willing to help, but I don't have the resources to be able to write up the new language or consider it. I need help. And this, we know, is something that the insurance industry does all the time. They have a whole host of people who are able to write up, submit policy language that's good for the insurers, and this is a significant vacuum that we have. We are absolutely lacking, again, the connections to the insurance commissioners and the opportunity and the ability to provide specific solutions. That's what they want. And so let's be strategic about what we want to change and how we think we can change it. And we have to be unified in the solutions. Jim Beck said during our collective consumer liaison meeting, when he said to me, Erica, I remember, we met last January. Yes, we did. I was giving a presentation for the Georgia Association, and he was there because he was running for commissioner, and he remembered me, and I was flattered. But he said, Erica, the collision repairers, they're all over the place. He said, they just can't get it together about what they want and how they want it fixed. Right. And he's not wrong. This industry, I will tell you, in any industry I have ever worked in, is the most disjointed, non-unified industry I've ever seen. And I will say, I still hear from some collision repairers the whole, well, I paid a lawyer to figure this out for myself, or I did litigation to figure this out and get this done and get whomever insurer off my back. And, everybody else can do that too. I'm not sharing. We have to be united. We have to speak with one voice.
Agreed.
Sheila Loftus said that years and years and years ago, and she was absolutely right. And this is what I'm hearing from an insurance commissioner. I want to help, but I can't, because everybody's, got their own picayune little issue here, there, wherever. So we have to say, here's what we want. We can't have any more, and forgive me for those of you who are Westerners, the cowboy approach of, I know, I see you're wearing your boots, girl. And I was looking right at you when you said that. And so we need to make certain we make our priorities and we make them clear, and we stick to that. Look, labor rates are a huge problem. I get that, right? But we need to start with the safety OEM procedures. They get that.
Yep.
The insurance regulators understand safety, and there's no question about the fact that it's a consumer issue. And again, it's the great way you can say, like I did to the one insurance commissioner, hey, you want unsafe vehicles going back out on the road? I mean, that's what you're saying. It's okay if we keep, the insurance rates down, it's okay for people to be out there driving 70 miles an hour in death traps, okay? So, again, this is where I say this is the best place to start, and we need, obviously, to be able to coordinate with the OEs on that. We also need to make certain that we support the pending legislation. There are bills in these states that would mandate insurers pay for OEM procedures. And I know I just read recently about how in Texas, one of the insurance industry reps said, oh, well, you know, it's not right to mandate that we have to pay for this, but there's nothing in this bill that mandates that the collision repairers have to perform these repairs. I mean, that's an easy argument to refute. It's like, just because you don't know if the repairer is going to do a good job doesn't absolve you of the responsibility to pay for a good job, right? Okay, so, I mean, that's an easy answer. But we have to make ourselves available to testify. We have to be able to submit written documentation, written testimony, even about why it's a good idea to adopt certain laws or regulations, or why it's a bad idea. We have to be much more on top of this in a unified way. Again, all of these, I know Louisiana, I believe, is anticipated. Mississippi, there should not be a problem with this, because when I spoke to the Deputy Commissioner of Mississippi, the Deputy Commissioner over Consumer Affairs, he said, our Commissioner already mandates the use of OEM procedures. We don't have that issue. Now, that was the first I heard of it. That could be true. I don't know. I haven't spoken recently to specific folks from Mississippi, but that was the position that they took. And they said, we already have that. Well, if that's the case, that's great. There should be no problem enacting the statute. The other thing, too, I'm going to say, do file complaints, right? I told commissioners when I spoke that we get pushback. There are some states in which we've been told that the Department of Insurance will not take complaints from collision repairers. They will only take them from consumers. And they told me, no, that isn't true, in essence. Or at least that shouldn't be true. We do take complaints from anybody, any interested party, and we will consider that. So that is what I was told, all right? So if you get told that collision repair, we don't take complaints from collision repairers, let me know, and I will make a point of contacting that commissioner and letting him or her know that you are, in fact, being told that. It's always better, obviously, if the consumer files the complaint, but clearly, as I said to the commissioners, how are the consumers supposed to know why? We'll use the Seabashams. Why a roof needs to be welded instead of glued. You know, how are they supposed to know that? They can't know that. And so they will have to have your help to file that complaint, probably, anyway. But it does get noticed. And so if you're in a state and you know folks, you know collision repairers from other parts of your state, encourage them to file complaints so that they're getting this information from a wide span of folks in the state. So they know it's not just in Chicago that the insurers do this. It's all over Illinois. So let me go to the NAIC website. NAIC website has a consumer complaint section. You can click on that. Even if you're a collision repairer, you can file it under the consumer complaint section. You can click on that and it will bring up the states so that it's an easy way to get to the complaint form that you need for any given state. Most of them have adopted the NAIC complaint form, but you know, some states are still doing cowboy stuff out there. You know, they want to do things their own way. Oh, and the other thing too, I finally remember what I wanted to say about the complaints. What's important about the complaints is that is what triggers whether the insurance department investigates an insurer or not for certain practices, or the number of complaints that they get on a given topic, like auto claims handling, which is what this would fall under. Okay, so filing complaints, even though you know you're going to get, the insurance company said it didn't do that at the end, your response, it's still important to go through the act of filing the complaint. Okay? We also need to support the people who are willing to help us. Mike Kazi is running for re-election in 2020, and Mike Kazi is a friend of this industry. Some of you may remember Mike. I know he used to write periodically for Body Shop Business. He knows what the issues in the collision industry are, and he is willing to help. But we have to keep him there. He was elected in 2016. He's up for re-election in 2020. And some of you may remember or have seen that 2 weeks ago, Tuesday, Mike Kazi is the person who wore the wire for the FBI and worked with the FBI on a bribery matter where the North Carolina GOP was trying to bribe him to stop having negative things happen to one of their big donors, insurance companies, right? Mike is a friend of this industry. That's all I can say. And it makes a lot of sense for us to do what we can to keep him. Same thing. Some of you may have followed the long, and I will use tortuous, as opposed to tortuous, because it is tortuous, history of the Burke versus Nationwide case. It has now come back. It's up now at the Supreme Court. The last positive section was 2015, and when the trial judge in the case awarded like $21 million in punitive damages and attorney fees to Mr. Burke, who is now the only surviving member of the Burkes, because of the bad faith actions of the insurance company. Went up on appeal. The appellate court said, yeah, it was a 2-to-1 decision. The appellate court said, yeah, he didn't really identify any truly specific action that Allstate took, or Nationwide took, to harm, in essence, to engage in bad faith. Yeah, and even though they said, oh, well, yeah, you said DRP shop that it's a total loss, but it's not a total loss. You're going to fix it because we won't get our money back in salvage. Yeah, it's not really enough. I was like, really? Really? And they also said something nifty like, oh yeah, and you never produced the estimate that the DRP shop had prepared saying it's a total loss. It's like, yeah, because Nationwide wouldn't turn it over. And the shop had apparently expunged it, and the lawyer didn't know he could get it from the data provider. So, issue. It is now at the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. I have been in touch with the attorney who was prosecuting this, and I told him that the AEPI is interested in filing an amicus brief. The collision repairers, I understand it's more of a touchy issue for you. You may be interested in working either with me or filing an amicus brief on your own. And certainly for any OEs in the audience, I would absolutely encourage you to have the Alliance of Auto Manufacturers submit an amicus brief as well, because this is an incredibly important issue. And thank you for the opportunity. Just a sec, I'll get right to you, sir. Thanks for the opportunity to present to the SERS. This is contact information. I will eventually be getting an AEPI. I have a Gmail account for it. I don't like to use Gmail because, privacy issues and all that. So this is my law firm email, and you're always welcome to contact me. If you want to donate to the Institute, that'd be great. We've got a PayPal link up on the site. You can always send a check to this address if you would like, and any support anybody wants to give us would be great.